Well, hello and welcome back to Hypnosis Everywhere. And I'm lucky to have Dr. Kaloski with me today. Now, I've been very remiss in your education of hypnosis, sorry. I haven't had anyone on talking about past life, reincarnation, all those great subjects. So Dr. Kaloski is wonderful at this, and I asked him to come on. So welcome very much. And
Thank you so
maybe,
much.
can you
Thank you
tell
so
us?
much, Inez. I appreciate appreciate the opportunity to be on this. We're going to rectify that situation right now. I'm honored to be the first.
Well,
Let's
that's
put it that
great.
way, to be the first to speak about past lives and reincarnation.
And I sort of would like to hear a little bit about you. I've known you've been in the field for a very long time. So I just like you to tell them a little bit about yourself and also what you think about hypnosis, what brought you there, that kind of thing, just a short.
Oh, that's an interesting story. Try and keep it short if I can. I've been in the practicing hypnosis for a little over 40 years. And I am based in Southern California. At one time, I created and I operated the nation's largest network of private hypnotherapy clinics in LA and Orange County. We did everything, but most of the business that came to us was for weight loss and smoking cessation. We would see upwards of about 500 clients a week. It was not unusual to see 500 in all the offices. We had about 18 offices, I think 21 staff therapists. And then for a while, I was out on the road doing seminars, covered the whole Southwest. And then I was doing trainings, training people in clinical hypnotherapy and also in past life regression certification. But that all goes back to, let me give you a little backstory here. My father was a fighter pilot during the war, and he flew P-51 Mustangs. After the war, he couldn't stay in the military because his plane went down to the English Channel, and he was severely injured. His leg was pretty banged up, and so after the war, he and his brother bought a strip of land out on Long Island, where family is from, a strip of land, and they put their own airport there. So my father was the pilot, and my uncle was the mechanic. And I remember rummaging through this attic one day, finding these old books about hypnosis. I mean, really, I wish I had those books today. They're probably worth a lot of money. These are the old ones. And I asked him, I said, well, what is this about, Dad? Well, he told me how he used hypnosis to help his students pass the FAA flight exam and also the written exam. So that's what he did. I used to watch him hypnotize people then at one point, and I found it fascinating. So I started reading his books. But I came upon a very interesting book. It was published back in the 50s by a hypnotist named Maury Bernstein. The name of the book was The Search for Bridie Murphy.
Mm.
And in that book, Bernstein told how he had regressed a gal. I forget where she was from, Pennsylvania somewhere. She told about a life she purportedly lived in around the 1880s back in Ireland. And the detail was amazing. It was marvelous. So I said, what is this? I never heard of reincarnation. You know, I was a good Catholic boy. We don't do that stuff back then. So I said, what is this stuff? So he explained to me what it meant. And he had a personal belief in reincarnation. He believed that he was a reincarnated another fighter pilot during World War I, who had been shot down over France and subsequently killed. Well, his plane went down in World War II, but he was luckier this time. So we talked about it, and then I taught myself how to do it. There were no schools back then. You went to the School of Hard Knocks. It was, you bought books, you taught yourself. So I was reading books on past life regression, reincarnation. I must have been about 16, 17 years old. I'm at my cousin's house. She was a few years older than me. She was married. And we were having a cup of coffee. And we got this talking about reincarnation, past life regression. She said, Bruce, I know you've been reading some books on that. Would you like to do one? And I said, what the hell, why not? I didn't know what I was doing. This was, but I said, why not? What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst? Yeah, I have it stuck back there for the rest of the life. No, that doesn't really happen.
No.
So that was my first regression that I did. And I loved it. It was fun. We got a good amount of detail from that. And then I went to University of Hawaii and majored in cultural anthropology. And I did when I came to California, I enrolled in a doctoral program, and I did let's see if I have it here. I did my dissertation. They're called dissertations here. I believe the British call it doctoral thesis, but we call it a doctoral dissertation. And I wrote it on the role of hypnosis in the religious conversion of the native Hawaiians by the Protestant missionaries. And I showed in that, or I attempted to show, and apparently I did because they gave me my doctorate, I attempted to show that while the Protestant missionaries didn't know they were doing it, they were actually using hypnotic techniques on the Hawaiian natives who are unusually susceptible to hypnotic subjects. And I did that, and I did some regressions there among the natives, and then moved to California and started my practice here. And back 1980, I believe, is when I did my first group hypnosis session. Rented a hotel room, ran an ad in the newspaper, and it was fun to do.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, I think you should be definitely the expert on this. I'm glad I asked you to come on, because I think that kind of learning is really good because it's coming from inside you mostly.
Absolutely.
Right.
I had some marvelous mentors along the way, but a lot of I went to school. I put the cart before the horse. I was going to school for my doctorate where they were teaching hypnosis, but I had been doing hypnosis before that. So as I said, I really put the cart before the horse.
Sounds good. So what I'd really like to know, I want to put you into a place where you can talk easily about any kind of past life regression, your theories about it, whatever you want to talk about, because this is a subject that's totally open. And I'm just going to hand it over to you and start teaching me and my audience.
And I'll run with it. Well, past life regression is, because you know present life regression is because you work in regression. Past life regression is the same, but it's bringing people back to a life that they have purportedly lived prior to this one. And it can be in any particular time frame when mankind existed. It's used. There are a number of different past life regressions. I delineate 4 of them, but there's more than that. I do all of these for anyone who wants that particular session. Do you remember years ago a drama on radio and TV called Dragnet?
Yep.
Okay, I called that session my Joe Friday session. Why? You remember what Joe Friday's his mantra was, his key phrase? Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. And in this session, we do the facts. We do, who were you? Where were you? What are you wearing? What are you eating? Look at the coin. You're going to a marketplace. You're looking at the coins. You're at a significant event. Are you married? Do you have any kids? What do they look like? What color is their hair? What color is your hair? What's your race? What's your nationality? What country are you in? What year did you bring them to their death? What year did they die? And it's a matter of fact session, but it's great because they can record these experiences and then do something that we were not able to do years ago. Well, we could. We had to go to the library and sit down and look through books. They could actually research that online. Good old Google, right? Yeah. Where would we be without Google? Ask Google. And they could research it online and to find out if, well, yeah, they actually ate this stuff, kind of. Yeah, they have. And also, when we have their name, I've had people go and check and see that, oh, yes, there was a person with that name who did live in this time, who did live in this street, who did live on that address.
Yeah.
And then there's another type of session where we totally explore what I call karmic connections. The people that they knew, and we spend more time doing that. The people that they might have known in past lifetimes, how they came with them, or did they come with them into this lifetime? And but it's not the same. It doesn't translate the same. In other words, whoever was your Your father in that life could be your son in this life. So they all come with us. Whoever was your aunt could be your uncle or your sister or your brother. God forbid your mother-in-law. But and then a third type of session is a between lives session,
Mm-hmm.
and that was popularized by, I'm sure you know, Dr.
Yeah.
Michael Newton,
Yeah.
where we take them back to a time period between the last life they lived and the life they're in now, and they explore it, see what the activities were there, what were they meant to learn. That's supposedly a learning period between lives, where you choose your next life, you choose who you're going to be, what you're going to be, and the details. Doesn't say that everything's set in stone, but you do. It's called you do a life map, a birth plan, and it's generally very loosely done because you're making a contract. Now, who are you making the contract to? I don't know. Is it God? Is it the Creator? Is it the big Kahuna up there? I have no idea. But you're making a contract that this is what you're going to fulfill. But it's like there are escape clauses in the contract, so it doesn't have to go exactly that way, because we have free will.
Yeah.
And then the next type of past life regression session would be called past life therapy. Something happened in a past life that is carrying over to this life and is causing some challenges in this life. It could be physical, it could be mental, it could be almost anything. I mean, I've had, if we have time, I'll tell you about the one that happened. This firmly stands out in my mind.
Well, I better think you should share it then.
Yeah, a fellow came into me, this was years ago, and he came into me with memory and concentration. And he said he worked for the government. I suspected he was CIA, because he was very hush-hush. And so he was sitting, I'm doing the session with him, and he's sitting like this, and he's squirming around. I says, "You all right?" He says, "Oh, I got this pain in my back, and the doctors can't figure out where it's from." So I said, I don't know why. I said, sometimes there's no known, I said, I read it, there's no known physiological reason for that. Is that what you're telling me? He says, yes. Sometimes they come from a past life. If you happen to believe, so yes, I believe in past life. So I brought him back the next week. I did a past life regression. And I have to add, he was also very mistrustful. He was always looking behind him, looking behind his back. And if it was CIA, I can understand how he would be doing that. So anyway, I take him back to a past life in the 1800s as a fur trapper in Colorado. He had a territorial dispute with a tribe of Indians. He was hunting on their land. They didn't like him hunting on their land. So they had a powwow. They sat in the teepee or around the fire. Everybody, they smoked a peace pipe or whatever they did in those days. And they came to an agreement that he would be allowed to use to hunt in this particular portion of their land. Well, okay, they agreed on it. There was a renegade Indian among them, I guess some young whippersnapper who didn't want anything to do with the white man. As my client, or who he was in that life, was walking toward his horse, this renegade Indian snuck up behind him, tomahawked him in the back. He died a horrible, lingering death because of that, which apparently transformed over in this life. He was mistrustful, always looking at his back, because someone might be sneaking up on him. And as soon as he recognized that, the pain was gone. So that was an interesting one, very interesting one.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I've had some spontaneous ones that happen in the chair when I'm working, but haven't done a lot of detective work within. It's usually just cleared up and move on sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in those aspects of, and we've only got a couple minutes left, but on this section, believe it or not. So maybe I'll just, maybe you can just tell another story, and then when we come back, we can get into all kinds of other aspects.
We'll do that. I was teaching a class where I teach people how to do what I do. And I had this young fellow who had gone through my clinical hypnotherapy. He was Hispanic. He wanted to be a teacher to the Hispanic, a motivational speaker to the Hispanic market. Only one problem. He was terrified of speaking. He had intense phobia, which, might make it difficult. So I took him back. He went back to a lifetime in ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, he was the, for want of a better word, I'm going to call him the announcer at the Colosseum. And so his job was to walk out of the Colosseum, unfurl the events of the day, and read whatever it was, lions killing Christians, gladiators dismembering each other, and he's going to read that out. Well, his fellows there, his friends, played a joke on him, switched the scrolls, gave him the blank one. So he went out in the middle of the floor of the Colosseum with the emperor watching, unfolded, and there was nothing. And he froze, and waiting for something from the emperor, hopefully not a fingers down. And from that time forward, he had an intense fear of public speaking, but we were able to get him through that by him seeing how it happened. And also I did a little additional hypnotherapy to give him that too.
Sounds good. And guess what? Just good timing when we're off to break, and
Wonderful.
we'll see them on the other side.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome back to Hypnosis Everywhere. We're talking about reincarnation and past life therapies, past life sessions. It's great. And I'm really asking Dr. Kaloski right now, I'm going to ask him where, with all the experience he's had, where the theories came from and what his aspect of understanding the process of why we're here.
Let me
That's a small question, just a little one.
That's a good one, but I'm going to supply it with a caveat before I begin. Everything I say is based on our current knowledge of past lives, matter spiritual. That doesn't mean these things can't change. What I espouse today in several years may be eclipsed. So always, whatever you hear, whether it's from me or from anyone else out there, listen to it, believe it if you'd like, but take it with a grain of salt, and realize that sometime in the future, other more viable theories may come along. Well, the theory.
I really love that because it's so right on. I always say, be open to possibility, but don't shut the door.
Exactly. Newton gave us a way to look at the universe. Valid, still valid today. Einstein gave us another way to look at the universe, still valid today. Stephen Hawking gave us another way, still valid today. And they didn't supplant, they just integrated with the other theories. So the theory behind reincarnation is that our souls are meant to evolve and to grow, and over successive lifetimes, through successive stages called soul evolution. There are stages of infant, baby, young, mature, and old. And this could happen over thousands and thousands of years. And we progress through these. And it's analogous to how you raise a child. They have their own characteristics. As they say to you, that person's an old soul. They might be. They usually tend to take things very easily. They've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Okay, they've been through all of it over their lifetimes. And they're getting ready to, close out the book, so to speak, and maybe join in union with the Creator. Or maybe they're going to decide, I had a ball. I want to do it all over again. These are options that are open to them. There's very much a loose options apparently on the other side, and we're not meant to suffer for things that we did in previous lifetimes. So and it's not always a one-to-one correlation. Okay, if I killed you in a past lifetime, does that mean that you're going to kill me in this lifetime? No, it might mean, but killing you was depriving you of something in your life. You may, or whoever you are, may somehow deny me of something, not necessarily my life, but it could be something else. There's not always a one-to-one correlation. And also, you have to understand that maybe karma, maybe your lives are meant just to experience, just for the plain fun of experiencing it. Remember Frank Sinatra's song? I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet, a pawn, and a king. I've been up and down and over and out, and I know one thing. That's, I think, what this is all about. At some time in our myriad plethora of lives. We have been all those things and more.
I
We've
think
been
it's
good.
great.
We've been bad.
Yeah. And I think you really explained it well, because I've always said that, there's a contract we make when we come here.
Right?
And that's what I've discovered in the work I've done. And also is that we can actually ask for it to be changed at
Yes.
times. We can
Alter the
say,
contract.
now, is there something I need to learn before we can change that?
Yes.
All those sort of things.
Right.
And I think it's awesome. And past life regression is not only healing, but it's also very entertaining.
Oh, it is. It is. That's why I said there's a myriad of ways we can go for that. I've got people who want to go through all of them. So I start them at the beginning with good old Joe Friday, and I take them all the way through to a therapy to work on an issue that they want to work on. Could be a phobia, could be a medical condition. A good example of that are some woman, anorexic woman, and a bulimic woman. Well, that might stem from a time like from the I think it was the 18th or 17th century, when it was fashionable to have a very thin waist, 18 inches. Imagine what they had to go through to get an 18-inch waist in this corset they couldn't eat. So that is something that might carry over to another lifetime. Addictions can carry over into another lifetime. A person dies. Let's say a person is injured in the war, or the Civil War, and they're in a tent, and people are dying around them, and they're using maybe opium or maybe morphine to deaden the pain, but there's not enough to go around. So that person is thinking there, and his last conscious thought before he dies is, but there's not going to be enough for me. What about me? Well, then the next life, they make sure there's enough for him.
Yeah.
So that's another way that the past lives can impact us.
I think it's an interesting concept for people that don't believe in this stuff to listen to, or even if they chose to think of it as real or imagined, it wouldn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Does not matter. That's, there's a psychological form of treatment called psychodrama. And psychodrama, what you do with a therapist, you take on a role. You make up a role, you take it, and you play that role with a therapist. It's a drama. It's like a soap, the soaps, the afternoon soap dramas. And that's what you do. Well, to some people, you want to call it that, look upon it as that, by all means. It's a form of psychosomatic psychodrama where a part of your subconscious takes hold of your mind and gives it a story.
And the part that the part of you that has really horrible relationships with certain people doesn't mean that they are terrible people.
No.
They are playing their part.
Yep, exactly. I'm glad you said that. They're playing. They weren't sent here to torture you. Okay.
It feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, your ex-spouse wasn't sent here to make your life miserable. They were sent here to teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to learn what that lesson and to benefit from that lesson. Mm-hmm. And so people will say, well, wait a second. I'm supposed to learn a lesson, but no one's telling me what the lesson is. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a reason for that. Because if you knew what the lesson is, that would prejudice things. You got to figure these things out for yourself.
And that's one thing about hypnosis. It can help you find out a lot of things
exactly
for yourself. Yeah.
And the operative words are help you find out for yourself. Yeah. Because people think, well, okay, can you tell me what my purpose is in life? Why I came? I said, no, but you can. We can lead you to a point where you can find out your purpose, or your higher self can find out that purpose and deliver it to you, or your guide, whichever you choose to call it. Yeah.
Yep. That's great. I'm glad that we're explaining this. And now let's move on from the facts, ma'am, and go a little bit to that in-between life for a moment, and just talk about the bardo a little bit.
Yes, that is totally fascinating. But here's the interesting thing, and there might be a relation to NDEs, to near-death experiences, and that. Have they gone that far? We don't know. There's the suggestions that they have. but it's different for different people, and it also correlates with your certain belief systems. Now, some people in that in between lives, if they're Christian, they'll meet Jesus.
Yeah.
If they're Jewish, they'll meet Abraham or Moses. And if they're Indian, they'll meet their particular gods or whatnot. But yeah, it seems to be very individually designed.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's makes my concept, the theory of my mind is that it's going to use what they are there, what their knowledge is on Earth, to give them what they need to know at that moment.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. And here's another interesting concept about that. Uh, I okay. Let's go back to that kid I worked with who was an announcer in ancient Rome. He is that to say that this was what time of Christ, maybe just a little bit after the turn of the first century, just got into A.D. Does that mean he didn't live between those? No, not necessarily. You look at 2,000 years. You know, what was he doing for 2,000 years? Playing tiddlywinks in the great beyond? No, he almost surely lived other lives, but many times it's what's going on in this life that triggers, and we as hypnotherapists know what that means, triggers a memory of a past life before that. Use this. Let's use this as an analogy. On my desk here, I've got a whole bunch of quarters, and they have different dates on that. Let's say these quarters, some of them are pretty old. They're going from 1800 up to the year 2000. And I go like this, and I knock all the quarters off the desk. And they go spinning around the room and falling all over the place. And these quarters is an analogy for past lives. Now, 1885 may end up on top of 1902. 1857 may end up on top of 1995. Okay. Well, you see, and one of them might have rolled under the couch. It's never going to be seen again. So this is when past lives can touch present lives. So something that happened, and here's an interesting thing. What happened to that fellow who had that phobia? He was about the same age in this life as he was in that life. So these phobias or events don't know why, but they seem to take effect during a person's lifetime when they reach about that particular age.
You know what you kept back from us?
But
Did the lions eat the guy?
did the lions eat the guys? No, they didn't. The emperor had a good sense of humor. So he did. He mentioned that he was playing around with them. His thumb was going this way, that way, this way, and he's sweating bullets. And finally, up like this, they let him go. They found out it was a joke.
That was a good ending.
It was a good ending. Yeah.
So that's great. And, you know, in the Bardo, from my point of view, is going to be, like you said, different for everyone. Yeah. It's that in-between stage where you're going to go and maybe learn some things, maybe whatever. We don't really know exactly. We have had people regress into it, and we get little tidbits here and little tidbits there. But I think you'd agree with me. We don't have the full picture for sure.
No, we don't. And are we meant to have the whole picture?
I don't think so.
Yeah, there is a fascinating book. I have it upstairs. I would suggest everybody read. Other than reading my book, Your Journey Was Never Meant to End, which is everything you wanted to know about reincarnation. Is available on Amazon. By the way, Your Journey Was Never Meant to End. Anyway, it's the book called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers, written by a gal by the name of Annie Kagan. And she swears it's a true story. Her ne'er-do-well brother was killed in an auto accident. And about a month after he dies, he comes back and starts talking to her and tells about all of his experiences in the afterlife. And it'll give you chills. I strongly recommend it to anybody else.
Oh, I think that's a great thing to read. It's on my list.
Afterlife,
And
the
your book's on
afterlife.
my list too,
Yeah.
so we'll know where to
Thank
get
you, thank you,
those.
thank you, thank you.
So I really think that's great. So you mentioned NDEs. Now, have you worked with NDEs at all, with people who have had the experiences?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
I
thought
have.
you might.
Yeah, and they what they want to know is they want some facts. I'll call them facts. Some experiences, some memories may get lost over time. So we take them back to that in a gentle way. You know, we won't if
Yeah.
they temporarily died from a heart attack, we don't want to recreate that.
Yeah.
But we take them back to the experience after
Yeah.
the heart attack, the brief death, I guess you would call it, and they come up with more memories. Matter of fact, on the same vein, whenever I do a past life regression, I can't talk to anybody else's technique. The last post-hypnotic suggestion I give them is that over the next few days, you will have more memories, more facts will come into your subconscious mind. Maybe at odd moments during the day, you might be driving, you might be making a cup of coffee, but other things that happen during this regression are going to pop into your head, and particularly during your dreams. So it's not just what they remember, because everybody's memory is faulty. It's what pops into their head after that.
Yeah. I think that's a very good thing to do, and I think that's pretty normal for the client to get those
Yes.
things. If you didn't tell them, it actually might seem a little strange to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got about 3 minutes left in the show. Do you want to go on this segment? Not the show, sorry.
So,
Do you want to go for another story, or where do you want to go for 3 minutes?
let's see another story. We talked about him. We talked about that guy. Oh, whenever I do a group session,
Mm-hmm.
I have the participants, because I'm not speaking to them. I can't get feedback from
No.
20 people in a group. So I have them fill out what's called a trip record. And sometimes this works better, because sometimes when you hypnotize a person and you talk to them or have them talk to you, get feedback, it can lighten the state. You know, you're involving the cognitive processes of the mind. For some people, they find it annoying. So what do you do in a group situation is I have the trip record with all the questions I'm asking them. When they come out of it, they fill out the answers. I give them 10, 15 minutes right away. I don't say any word to them. Let them fill it out. I had one fellow in a class I was teaching talk about, he went back to a time in the early 1900s where he was going on a trip from San Francisco. And he just happened to be leaving the day in 1906 when the San Francisco earthquake struck. He was a medical physician in San Francisco. And he related all about his life, about the trip he took up, about the desolation when he came back. And so that night, it was a two-day course. He went home, came back the next day. He says, Bruce, I went online and I researched some of this stuff. He says, it was spot on. I got the name of this guy. I got where he lived. And so he was going to do additional research. And that's neat when you can do that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting because it verifies our rational mind.
Yes, indeed.
And our rational mind is always got to make those things and make stories up and make them and then be accepted. It can't just be the story that you can just allow it to be, because our rational minds are used to having everything dictated and
Yeah, in the
proof,
next segment, I can talk a
supposedly.
little about the people who are the skeptics and what arguments they use to refute this, and our counter arguments to them.
I
I
think
want
that,
to be perfectly fair here, that there are other explanations for the phenomena
well,
that we do receive.
I think most of us don't say this is done in just like stone. This is the only way, because it isn't. And
Hmm.
like you say, we seem to get pieces of information and they may be accurate for what we can know at the time.
Right. Yes. Our
But
knowledge
then
is
we
a
need
true thing.
another story again later, because we'll
Yeah.
start to evolve the theory or whatever. And that's great. So guess what? We're going to break and we'll see everyone on the other side.
Good, good.
The Simpson Protocol. To reach the show today, send an email to Inez, that's INES, at InezSimpson.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back to Past Lives on Hypnosis Everywhere. Well, I'm going to ask Dr. Kaloski, what other sort of things that we can assume there's other reasons for all this? And what are some of those reasons that people say?
That people use to explain it. Okay.
That's used to
Well,
explain.
one of them is it's a term used in hypnosis, cryptomnesia or cryptoamnesia, however you want to pronounce it. It's that we can remember, we can learn things and then forget how we subsequently remember those things, and then it surfaces sometime later. So what these people would be saying, well, yes, I know, yeah, you claim to have been in medieval England, and you're at this castle. Well, that's because of something you read in a book or saw in a movie. Well, that's okay. That's valid. That's valid, except when it is so detailed. Except when the person who has never been to that castle can tell you, yeah, if you walk down the main hallway, make a left, and go up a little more, make a right, you're going to see a knight in shining armor standing there. And they give you things that there's probably no way that they could possibly have known that. Okay? It's just too vivid. The details are too vivid and too defined. Just got too many details.
And the other thing they also say is, it's just made up and it's all that. But like you say, when all that detail's there. And I also think when you're doing it and the person's in it, they definitely seem to believe it's a reality.
Yes, they do, because they are partaking of the experience.
Yeah.
They're not. It's like when you do regressions, it's called a regression and a revivification.
Yes.
And we as hypnotherapists, we might have learned that back in school, but we very rarely use the terms that, except that we're teaching it.
Yes.
But many times this is more of a revivification than a regression. But
Yes.
everybody understands the word regression.
Yeah. And, a memory in ourselves, it changes every time you look at a memory.
Yeah.
Every time you look at a picture, it changes a little bit. So
we
know that if we
something
go
else.
into a past life, you're going to see it from whatever aspect you're looking at it from at this time.
There's some people who believe that everything that has happened is somehow out there in the ether, like radio waves.
Yeah.
And we're kind of picking up on those radio waves when we do a past life regression. We're picking up on the Akashic records, or who was it? Not Freud, Jung. Talked about the collective unconscious. Yeah. That we all filed that into one. That's a possibility.
And for me, that's a definite possibility.
It didn't really happen to us, but it happened, and we're picking up on that.
And what do you say to people that say, well, that past life regression stuff is just baloney. They all want to be Cleopatra. They all want to be. I don't think I've ever had anyone in my chair who was Cleopatra, ever.
I never had the closest I have ever come. And this gave me the sweats. Regressing a fellow, and he's talking about, oh yes, we're at a supper. This is the Last Supper. And he's describing the Last Supper. Oh my God, he's going to tell me he's Jesus. And I'm in front of all the students. I'm going to my students. How am I going to handle this? And so, no, he wasn't. He was St. Thomas. He was the doubting Thomas.
Yes.
But other than that, and the reason for that, is that most people have not led those types of lives. They just have not. They were, matter of fact, most lives throughout history were quite boring. But there's something to be said for those boring details, because they're verifiable. Boring details are verifiable. Mm-hmm. So I too never had Napoleon, never had Cleopatra. Not to say that they're not out there.
No. The odds are that there's going to be, the odds that they're going to come and see you, though, is not always that.
I was thinking the other day, I said, a lot of people claim to have been on the Titanic. I believe the Titanic, I looked it up, they sailed with a little over 3,000 people. Yeah. I'll bet you there's 10 times the amount of people who claim they sailed on the Titanic. And I don't know how you can explain that one. Yeah. But anyway, here's another possible explanation. Okay. DNA, that somehow what happens is, to us, to our family line, is carried in our DNA memory. Well, if you can prove that who you are now was descended from that particular line, yeah, maybe. But in most cases, it's spread far apart. There's no chance of a correlation of in the family line for DNA.
So getting back to, since this is all seems like a short segment at the end always, even though
Yeah.
it is the same, is what is this now to do for people? What do you think
What
is
can
this
you?
is the
Okay.
best thing for them to do?
Well,
Or
some of the things I briefly discussed, I'll go through them again. It can help you uncover the origin of your current fears, hang-ups, personal challenges, get an amazing and immediate relief from some of these too, and many times. You could find out if you share the previous lifetime with your mate, your relatives, your friends. And if you did, what lesson were you meant to learn during that sharing? What and if that person came forward with you into this lifetime, why? What are you meant to do? What are you meant to accomplish in this lifetime? Or what are they meant to teach you? What are you meant to teach them? You can learn who your soulmate is, your true soulmate, and you can meet your soul group. Some people call it their soul tribe. In other words, a group of souls that have traveled with each other throughout eternity. You can understand the reasons why you've chosen certain relationships for yourself in this time. Again, learning what you're meant to learn. You can learn how to create major changes in your life by discovering who you were in a past life. You have talents and abilities that you could have carried with you over those past lives. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to be a concert pianist, but I can, for me, the extent of my piano playing is chopsticks. But I've had dreams about sitting down at the piano and playing. So maybe I did in a past life way back when. And you can technically or theoretically bring those abilities back with you. You might have been a financial genius back then. Maybe you could bring those back with you and draw upon your knowledge from the past lives. And you can discover your real purpose in life, your true purpose in life. Your people call it the soul's desire, your spirit's passion, why you came into your current lifetime, and you can gain the power to dynamically actualize that process. They say knowledge is power. Now you'll have the knowledge. You can recall, briefly touched on this, power, skills, abilities that you learned in previous lifetimes to bring greater creativity, fulfillment, passion to this lifetime. You can expand your awareness, sharpen your senses. And here's the main thing, the main item on the menu. You can remove blocks, clear your karma, lay a solid foundation for success now and in the future. You are not a victim of your karma. You can change your karma, and you change it with intent, to have the intention of changing the karma. And if you remember, Dr. Wayne Dwyer was very big on intention, and I believe it translates over to this too.
Yeah.
Teach you.
So what I was thinking too is Mozart. He was 4 years old when he started playing piano.
Yeah.
There's all these people that have done things very early on in life. Now, do you have a tendency to believe that has come in with them?
I do.
Yeah.
I do have a tendency.
Yeah.
And it happens in many different ways.
Yeah.
Two of the people that did some very solid research on this, because they didn't use hypnosis. And some people look askance at hypnosis and say, you're leading the witness. Well, you can't if you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
But these are spontaneous memories. Yeah. There's one fellow who is 3 years old. He was a whiz at baseball. Turned out that he was the reincarnation of Lou Gehrig, which was the famous New York Yankee first baseman. And he knew things that he should not have known.
Remember this case.
Not have known. The guy who wrote the screenplay for Gone with the Wind, Sidney Shelton Howard, I think his name was. He won the Oscar posthumously. One young fellow claimed that told stories about him. Now, the interesting thing is when it happens to kids, they have those memories about 3, 4, 5, 6. Then by 7 or 8, they're gone. They forgot all about them.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think it's pretty interesting. And there's been quite a lot of research on kids and past life. Dr. Ian Stevenson, was it Ian Stevenson?
Ian Stevenson at the University of Pennsylvania, Department of Psychiatry, and his the guy who took over from him, Tucker,
Mm.
Robert Tucker. And they both did some marvelous investigations here in the United States and in India.
Yeah. Yeah.
About the young fellow who was shot down in another life, was shot down in the Pacific. He flew up an aircraft carrier, Nakomo, and he was shot down, and he had some amazing things to say. He even met some of his buddies from the war.
Yeah.
He's 5 years old. His buddies are in their 70s, but
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is. It's so fascinating.
And we think it's interesting because we need that for our conscious mind to make it just right, you know?
And people who say, well, that can't be, I remind them what Shakespeare, the noble bard, once said: there are more things on heaven and earth, Horatio, that are dreamt of in your philosophy. And true.
And of course, now we have the quantum ideas and all these things. So time is really happening all in one time.
Exactly. There's a great theory. It was Einstein espoused it, nonlinear time. Yeah. So my feeling and other people's are, you can choose to reincarnate at any time in history.
Yeah.
Let's say, okay, after this, I'm not too crazy about the 21st century. So I'd like to go back and maybe be born in pioneer days. I don't know if I want to do that, but, or maybe the earlier part of the 20th century. Maybe I'd want to be a part of that. Maybe you want to be a part of the golden age of Hollywood, or what was going on in Europe. Yes, you can choose to reincarnate at earlier levels.
Okay, so before we go any further, we could keep going forever, but we've only got 3 minutes left, and I want you again to talk about your contact information, because it's not on the podcasts that come, and also your book. And
all right, the book is Your Journey Was Never Meant to End. You can go to Amazon and look for it there. Your Journey Was Never Meant to End. I was fortunate to have that as a #1 bestseller on Amazon. I also have a Facebook group with the same name. Your Journey Was Never Meant to End. You can search out that group and request to join, and you learn a lot of interesting things. I regularly do videos on that group, posting. We have a lot. We're closing in on, I think we just did 4,500 members, and so
I was one.
Yeah,
I won. Yeah.
Yeah, we just passed it, and we have some very great people who get a lot of content on that, and I kind of just put it up there, and I sit back and let it run itself. Every once in a while, I interject myself.
No.
My website is www.drkaloski, and doctor is spelled out DOCTOR Kaloski KALOSKI.com. It'll give you some other information on that past life regression, and I do offer private past life regressions on and also hypnotherapy for other things, weight loss, smoking cessation. But I've got a past life regression coming up in about an hour, and it's you can find out about that on my website, or you can email me at drkaloski@gmail.com, and that's drkaloski@gmail.com. Or if you're on Facebook, you can send me a Facebook messenger. And so obviously we're doing them remotely now. The world has changed.
Yes, and I find it works just as well, and the person's in their comfortable own area.
Absolutely. I don't think I want to go back to an office. I had enough of them already. I know.
I think you've done your share.
You couldn't drag me back to one.
So we got 30 minutes left. I want to 30 seconds. Sorry, 30 minutes. I wish we did. I want to thank you for being with us, Dr. Kaloski. It was a great show. I love this information to go out for people. And like I said, I was remiss, but you fixed it for me.
So good. It was a pleasure. Enjoyed it immensely.
So
looking forward
see
to
everybody.
Oh, by the way, one more
thing.
thing. If I have 10 seconds, I'm going to put together a past life workshop, a group workshop. If people are interested, it'll be on Zoom. They can email me at drkaloski@gmail.com.
Wonderful.
Send me an email, and we'll let you know when we're going to be in the next few weeks or so.
Sounds
group
good.
Workshop. Okay.
So we'll say goodbye for everybody, and we'll see you next week.
And thank you for having me.